A lot of people suspected that their posts were being censored or being modified, taken down, blocked by Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, especially during COVID. But what we were really shocked to learn was the extent to which the United States government, the federal government, all the way to the top, literally quoted in our papers and in the evidence that we were able to obtain in this case, that this goes all the way to the top. We're engaged in a massive campaign to censor American speech. And we knew from the evidence that we obtained in the case, and we still know, that this was protected speech, that it is the kind of speech that the First Amendment exists to protect. And so, we think this is one of the most important cases in the century related to the protection of freedom of speech from censorship and a massive enterprise to censor the American public from criticizing the government during something that affects everyone so deeply as did the pandemic. So this is one of the most important cases in the century related to the First Amendment. So there is no doubt that the President of the United States was involved in censoring the American people and using the entirety of the federal government apparatus to do that. So we have 20,000 pages of documents, over 100 pages of fact-finding by the judge that back up and illustrate just how invasive and how large this enterprise extended. It went through the FBI. It went through CISA, which exists in the Department of Homeland Security. It affected election speech. It affected the Hunter Biden's laptop story, which was the government's narrative was that this was Russian disinformation. In fact, they knew that it was true, but they were directing these companies and threatening these companies if they didn't take down that speech, and that had an impact on our elections. So it's a very, very threatening thing when the federal government uses the power and authority of the government to block people from exercising their freedom of speech and their rights that are protected under the First Amendment. The First Amendment exists to protect minority viewpoints. In other words, it doesn't exist to protect the popular narrative. And so what it's always been there to protect is, and especially I think was there to protect, were people that were criticizing government. That was true when the founders of our country created a revolution to fight back against a king who was exercising tyranny over the people, and they wanted to be safe and create a government that would keep them safe when they criticized the government that they disagreed with. They went through the very experience of having government attack them and send an army against them for their speech and for criticizing the government. And so we created a constitution that would protect us from that kind of government tyranny. And yet this now, in this day and age, the American government, the federal government, is exercising the same kind of tyrannical approach to people's speech.